Wangú Wa Makeri was a Kikuyu tribal chief with the title of a headman and the only female headman in colonial Kenya. Wangú was known to be a ruthless chief, especially when executing the colonial declarations. And for 7 years, Wangú's political influence strengthened as she powerfully enforced her authority and viciously administered over the Waithaga location in Fort Hall, which was renamed as Murang'a. From 1902 to 1909, Wangú Wa Makeri was positioned by the colonial government to be a tax collector as part of her chiefly duties up until the Kibata dance scandal, which forced her to resign. Well, actually, she was forced to resign from being a headman, for she committed the ultimate transgression. You see, Wangú Wa Makeri engaged in the Kibata dance, which was an all-exclusive male warrior dance, that while she was busy dancing, enjoying herself and making merry, her grass skirt fell off, leaving her completely naked. But that was not the only scandal that Wangú Wa Makeri was involved in. Apparently, Wangú was entangled in a long-term romantic affair with a paramount chief from Fort Hall by the name of Karuri Wagakore while she was still married. As a matter of fact, the paramount chief Karori offered Wangú Wa Makeri the job position of a headman while they continued with their illicit affair, which was an open secret and the reason as to why she was untouchable in Fort Hall. Wangú Wa Makeri was born in 1856 in Gitie village in Fort Hall, which is now known as Murang'a. Wangú's father was known as Gatukia Masharia and her mother's name was Wakeru. Wangú's husband was known as Makeri Wambogo, and together they had 6 children. Now, this is how Wangú Wa Makeri came to be a headman. Wangú was Makeri Wambogo's first wife within the sea of 6 other co-wives. Wangú's husband was a wealthy man with a financial stability and a friend to the most wealthy individuals of Fort Hall. And one such individual was the paramount chief Karuri Wagakore, who occasionally made visits at Makeri Wambogo's house and stayed with the family. As tradition demanded, Makeri Wambogo would host his age-mate Chief Gakore and also provided him with entertainment for the period of his stay in the form of one of Makeri Wambogo's wives. And guess who was chosen to be Chief Gakore's entertainment? Wangú Wa Makeri, of course. What was expected to be a customary, acceptable one-night stand turned out to be a full-blown love affair. Now, Chief Karuri frequently returned to Wangú's arms and often showed her gratitude for being a great host. However, Makeri Wambogo remained silent over this open affair between his wife Wangú and the paramount Chief Karuri. As a result, Chief Karuri offered to reward Makeri Wambogo with the position of a local chief for not causing a scandal because of the open affair the chief was having with his wife under his roof in his bed. But Makeri Wambogo has declined the chief's offer for being a local chief or a headman. However, Wangú Wa Makeri allegedly convinced Chief Karuri to make her a chief instead. At this particular time in history, a female chief was unheard of because the position of a chief or a headman was exclusively a male-only job position. But due to his love for Wangú Wa Makeri, Chief Karuri offered her the job position of a headman, and no one, not even the colonial masters, protested against the decision made by the paramount chief. Therefore, from 1902 to 1909, Wangú Wa Makeri served as a headman for 7 years, up until the forbidden Kibata dance scandal that costed her a dream job. Now let's talk a little about her job as a headman. At this time in history, the British colonial authorities had begun a taxation system that was enforced by the local headman. Hence, the headman's job was to be a tax collector, aside from being a mediator in conflict, as well as a fixer of village or individual problems. Wangú acted as a go-between for the Kikuyu and the British colonial authorities, under which she became a controversial figure to her people. Wangú was described as an authoritarian tax collector who would intimidate tax evaders and imprison them in solitary confinement. Wangú would use these people as seats, sitting on their backs as they knelt. The tax collections from her location were the highest in the district during her reign. Wangú Wa Makeri's relationship with the paramount chief continued throughout her career as a headman. In 1909, during a June 4th meeting, the men of Waithaga saw it as an opportune time to dethrone her. On the night of the Kibata dance, which was exclusively for men, it was forbidden for women to join or even move near any male dancer. Nonetheless, Wangú did not care about the Kibata dance tradition, for as soon as she saw her lover, the chief, on the dance floor, she moved to join him, perhaps wanting to break this old age tradition by crushing it with her presence. Rumor has it that while she was busy dancing, one of the male elders secretly cut the strings of her skirt, which immediately fell to the ground, exposing her nakedness, something that was considered as an abomination for any man or woman to be seen walking or dancing naked in public. As you know, swift action was taken against Wangú Wa Makeri, where she was duly dismissed from her job position permanently. Now, what those male elders did to her was foul. It was really unfair. It was very foul. But here's my opinion about this Wangú Wa Makeri story. First of all, let me start by giving Wangú Wa Makeri her flowers for being the first local chief or headman in colonial Kenya. Bravo, madam. And on behalf of other women in Kenya and across the globe, I salute you as I continue to keep your legacy alive by sharing your story worldwide. Thank you for opening such huge doors of opportunities to many of us women who inspire to be in leadership. And may your name live on for generations. Secondly, polygamy, secret affairs, clandestine relationships are nothing new in Africa. In fact, this kind of unconventional relationships have been around since time immemorial, and even if they are considered as illicit, unfortunately, these relationships are here to stay with us. What can I say? Some people thrive over this kind of clandestine relationships, and they love the thrill and the drama in equal measure. And so did Wangú Wa Makeri and Chief Karori Wagakore. Well, actually, the Kikuyu tradition allowed for customary and an acceptable one-night stand between friends and their partners in those pre-colonial days. That's how the paramount Chief Karori ended up having an affair with Wangú Wa Makeri with the consent of her husband. So therefore, who are we to judge these two lovebirds? Besides, Makeri Wambogo, that is Wangu's husband, had other 6 wives acquired through polygamy. Perhaps that is why he stayed silent over the affair between his wife and the paramount chief. Or maybe there was a silent understanding between these two childhood friends. Hence, there was no drama between them. I do believe that Wangú and Chief Karori fell deep in love with one another, hence their long-term romantic affair, which everybody and their mothers knew about, because they could not hide it even if they tried to. Also, Chief Karori's love for Wangú is the reason as to why he offered her the dream job of a headman. Even though he knew that it was a male position, but that's what a man does when he falls deep in love with a woman. As for Wangú Wa Makeri, well, I believe that she capitalized on the chief's love for her and made sure to expand on her opportunities outside her husband's reach. Now that's ambition. And it's this kind of ambition that made her become a local chief for 7 long years. Thirdly, the power of tradition limited Wangú Wa Makeri. This woman was a chief for 7 years, beating the odds and breaking traditional barriers set for women in general, only for her to be duly dismissed from her dream job permanently, and all because she dared to engage in a male dance. What? Really? This was a move which enraged those warriors such that they conjured a plot to kick her out of her headman position for good. Which brings me to my 4th point. Now, you already know about the Kibata dance scandal. Now, why would the male elders do such a thing to Wangú Wa Makeri? Why would they cut her skirt? Why would they expose her nakedness? The fact that she was their chief, the fact that she had the heart of Chief Karori, the fact that the colonial masters admired her work, the fact that her husband was a rich man, they just aggravated these men. They were haters. They hated her for that. They hated her for being their leader. They hated her. They were haters. So instead of defending and protecting the woman's honor, these men decided to be her enemies, plotting and planning her demise, until they succeeded in getting her fired from her lucrative job position, and thereby replacing her with a man. That was their agenda all along. However, did Wangú Wa Makeri deserve to be treated with such disrespect? Or was she too bold and beautiful for their liking? Were they projecting their own insecurities onto her? All in all, I do believe that Wangú Wa Makeri was well ahead of her time, and her growth to becoming a chief despite her being illiterate tells you that she was a gifted leader. Even though her private life seeped into her political life, still it doesn't take away the fact that she made history of becoming the first and only female headman in colonial Kenya, paving way for women to step into leadership positions in Kenya. Wangú Wa Makeri died in 1915, leaving behind a unique legacy that lives on today. And her story has been told and forever will be told by many storytellers worldwide.